Hey everyone, I'm just waiting. I'm giving you all a 5 minute window while I do what I do. Hi, Kylie. How are you doing today? Is that lurking from work? I'm so nervous about this end. Look, I am so nervous too. I literally was just like, "Ugh, I don't know how this is going to go because Moshi just came out and like took Gumang away against the Imperial Edict. Like, what's happening? And then Anne says, "Hi, hi, how are you? How are you guys doing today?" Um, man, it's been quite a week. Sway Dash. I hope I said that right, by the way. Just let me know. He said, "I'm so excited to finally make it to a live." Yes, I'm finally happy. Well, I'm happy to finally have you here as well. Um, it's always fun when I get to do these live sessions. And like sometimes I'm like, I wish I could always do live sessions, but I know that's not realistic. But anyway, how are you doing? This week has been interesting because since there were no readings after Tuesday. I've been filling the time with reading other things, which, if you all saw the short that was released earlier today, then you know one of the readings is coming from TGCF, a part of one of the most devastating chapters there again. But hey, it was requested. So that's why I'm doing it. Okay. I'm not a cruel person. This was a request. But I also read something from SVSSS. Actually, this was already recorded, but I just like took a snippet of it to give everyone a taste. And then something from Arha. This is coming from, again, that little arsenal that I have of like specific scenes or chapters within these three books that I might just read every now and then. But I've been reading those and put those up for next week while I'm gone on my vacation so that you guys can still have like a little something, you know? Um, and it's been quite interesting, like very interesting. I like doing the short readings because I feel a lot more free with them and I can be more dramatic, I suppose. So I guess y'all will see what I'm talking about when the first one comes out on the 22nd. So, we are at 2:05. So let's go ahead and get started, I guess, really quickly with our recap. And so again, we have it that, they came back from the trip. Hope you have fun. Thank you. So the characters Moshi, Gumang, Jiang Yeshe, Yue Chengqing, and Mu Zhongchuyi, so many people. There's really only five. They came back from Bat Island, right? From rescuing Yue Chengqing, which we learned the reason that he went there was for Mu Zhongchuyi. And while it was not a smart decision, he was doing it out of love. Because he cares so much for his uncle and he knows that he's sick, even if he doesn't know what the illness is. So he went, got caught, and was about to be turned into a puppet, essentially, for this bat queen who fell in love with Chen Tong, which was the old master preceptor from Chonghua. All these connections. Whoa. And so, anyway, they came back, and, Morsi tells Gumang to go home. Although Gumang actually wanted to roam around, but he said no. Gumang could have actually not been snatched. Okay, anyway, that's random. um, so Gumang goes home while Moshi goes to find out more details on what happened. And he ends up stealing a jade scroll and finding out the truth. So now we all know the truth. Gumang is not a traitor. Yes, he is not a traitor. He was sent on a special mission to pretend to be a traitor. He's going undercover for Chonghua into the Liao Kingdom to learn the way they do things and then eventually come back. So we have him coming back though, and everybody wants him. I'll just put it that way. Mu Zhonglian wants him, and Zhou He wants him. And at the end of the day, because Zhou He has an imperial edict, he is the first one who gets to take him and does what? Experiments on Gumang. And it's to the point where his body and his spiritual core, just like all of that, is completely shattered, but his mind is fortified. Meanwhile, we have the secret friend of Zhou He's who says that he is doing a favor and stripping away Gu Mang's memories. And Gu Mang is like fighting this, right? And who is this special friend? Now, even though Moshi and Jiang Yeshe showed up, I'm still suspicious of Jiang Yeshe because he could be acting. Anyway, this man, I know it's uh, innocent until proven guilty, but for Jiang Yeshe and for me, it's guilty until proven innocent. So anyway, Moshi saves him, takes him away, and he's got the Shenlong Terrace healers working on him. It's not going well. Then Princess Mengzi shows up, and she also is like, okay, I'm going to help because you don't value my life. Hi, Freya. He's like, clearly you care so much about this man. You're willing to risk your life again. So offers to help. But then Medicine Master Jiang shows up, and he's like, he'll live. He'll be okay. I mean, maybe he won't be okay, but he'll be okay. Meanwhile, there's an imperial edict outside of Moshi's door. And so that is pretty much where we left off. He had told them to wait. Who tells the... This is why I'm scared, y'all, because Moshi has already stolen the Jade Scrolls and found out the truth. He has taken Gu Mang away from Zhou He, and now he has told the eunuch to wait with this imperial edict. I'm so nervous. Nevertheless, we have 4 chapters to read. It was going to be 3, but 4. Book lights. You guys ready? Because I'm ready, but like I'm terrified. So go ahead, get my book light on. I wonder what he will say when he finally sees the Emperor. Yeah, I'm like, because he's clearly gone mad. And not even saying gone mad in like the lost his mind kind of way, which I know is what people usually mean. But he's gone mad as in the, I'm pissed. I know the truth now. And anyone that stands in my way is like he's just gonna kill them all. So I'm like, well, he took that vow of calamity. So what can he do? You know? I'm nervous. Nevertheless, I have my book, my ring light, and my outrageously large water thingy. By the way, let's come up with a name for this because what is it? A canteen, but I keep forgetting or whatever. So we're just gonna make a name. Go ahead, put it in the in the description. I mean, in the chat, so we can have a name for this, buddy. The hydration station. I like that. Wait. Chapter 127, Confrontation. I already don't like this. The title. I hate confrontation. Just in general. Li Wei stood beneath Shihe Manor's plaque in the middle of the main entrance, arms crossed and hands tucked into opposite sleeves. His eyes were fixed on the ground. Behind him were the manor's great doors, heavily secured, and before him was the stone residence pillar conferred by the previous emperor, engraved in lesser seal script with the glorious merits of 4 generations of Mo clan heroes. Housekeeper Li, this is an act of rebellion. Does Shihe Manor choose to defy the imperial edict? What are you saying, Eunuch Zhao? Haven't I already explained? Shihe Juan is indisposed. He can't come out to receive the imperial edict. Once his condition improves, I'll report to the imperial order. You mustn't get angry. You'll make yourself sick. Eunuch Zhao was seething with rage. Jabbing a finger toward Housekeeper Li's nose, he snapped. Li Wei, do your lies know no bounds. The news of Shihe Juan's trespass in Sushu Terrace has already spread through the heavens. He stole the Gu trader from Elder Zhou himself, and now you stand out here saying he's unwell? Who are you trying to fool? Li Wei rubbed his nose and sighed. It's a long story. I'm afraid there have been several misunderstandings. What misunderstandings could there be? This night, Shenlong Terrace has gone in, Princess Mengzi has gone in, Jiangfu Li has gone in. Shihe Juan can receive all of these people, but the mouthpiece of the emperor is kept outside? What nonsense is this? Li Wei clapped his hands together. Ayo, you're right. Then you've noticed. Everyone who went in is a healer, and all of them are here to treat the Lord. The Lord is gravely ill. A creak interrupted their argument as the manor doors opened. Morsi stood framed within the great doors. In the moonlight, his eyes were sharp, undulled by his exhaustion. Li Wei had deflected these messengers for as long as humanly possible. Upon seeing Morsi emerge, he heaved a great sigh of relief and hastily darted out of the way. He lowered his head. My lord. Morsi stepped over the threshold, his voice low, unhurried, and intense. You've done well. You may withdraw. Understood. After Li Wei left, Morsi strode out. His gaze swept down the manor steps and landed on Eunuch Zhao. Even as the emperor's closest, most trusted servant, Eunuch Zhao was not immune to the pressures of hierarchy and status. Plus, Morsi naturally possessed a glacial aura. When he wasn't speaking or smiling, the iciness he exuded intimidated all around him. Eunuch Zhao's earlier boldness shrank to nothing. That's so funny. He lowered his head and performed an obeisance. Xi Gu. Morsi didn't speak. He turned his face up to the starry night sky, eyes flashing with an indescribable light. His Imperial Majesty asks you, how is His Imperial Majesty's health? Eunuch Zhao was stunned. He had imagined all sorts of reactions: acceptance, fury, defiance. But he was strangled into silence by this question out of the blue. Mengzi said his illness flared up these past few days. How is he now? Uh, Shi Hejun's consideration is appreciated. His Imperial Majesty is naturally protected by the heavens and has mostly recovered. All right, that's good. Morsi's steel-toed military boots clicked over the stone. He descended the stairs and said lightly, lead the way. They arrived at Juche Hall in the depths of the Imperial Palace, the warmest place in the entire compound. This Imperial Hall wasn't large, but it was built entirely of volcanic rock from the far south. Warming incense spiraled through the air, and the floor was covered in thick woolen rugs. The emperor always came here to rest and recuperate when his illness plagued him. Morsi followed Eunuch Zhao to the hall's entrance. Eunuch Zhao went in to make his report, then returned with his horsetail whisk in the crook of one arm. He bowed to Morsi. Shi Hejun, His Imperial Majesty invites you in. He strode through the hall doors. Morsi had never liked this place. The rugs here were too thick. His feet sank deep into the soft pile whenever he came here, like a wild beast trapped in mud or a moth stuck in a spider's web. That feeling of helplessness crept up his spine, lingering in spite of the luxurious scents suffusing the room. Eunuch Zhao closed the doors behind him. The bejeweled Juche Hall was filled with a heavy fragrance, as if the air itself had grown dense and solid. The weather had warmed in the last weeks, but a coal brazier blazed fiercely in the middle of the hall. The emperor reclined on a couch of ebony sandalwood. He was wrapped in a thick fox fur, his lashes lowered as he fiddled with a bracelet of Ditsa beads carved of Bodhi wood. Y'all have to excuse me because it's DZI. Maybe it's a typo? I'm not sure. His complexion was pale and wan. Even the fire's light gilding his features put no warmth on his face. At the sound of Morsi's muffled steps, the emperor let his fingers fall from the beads. He spoke with a sigh thinner than paper. Shi Hejun, you're here. Morsi said nothing. To be honest, he'd felt an overflowing rage since the moment he learned the truth. He'd wanted to run off to the palace to question the emperor at once, but Gu Mang was still in jeopardy, so he couldn't very well leave. Only after Jiang Fuli rushed over and successfully stabilized Gu Mang could he finally come to the palace and face this man who had known the truth all along. Now that he was actually standing before the emperor, his rage was not as sharp and volatile as it had been in the beginning, but it was deeper. He suppressed his own fury with great difficulty as he stared at that ruler wrapped in fox fur. We've requested your presence tonight over a small matter, the emperor began. Zhou He related quite a strange story to us, and we felt that it should be shared with Shi Hejun. Would Shi Hejun like to hear it? Morsi made no move to answer, so the emperor continued. Joha said he was conducting the black magic experiments as we ordered tonight. In the middle of an important trial, someone burst in, disregarding all reason and defying imperial orders, and insisted on taking the test subject away. They even went so far as to flout the law and summon a holy weapon, coming short of shedding the blood of our own Sushu Terrace's cultivators. Does Shihajuin feel that this thief must be wicked? An evil villain? The emperor spun one of the beads on his wrist and burst into laughter. So did we. Until Joha said this hero who had come to the rescue. He paused, slowly looking up. His face was lined with fatigue, but those eyes were cold and sharp. Was you? I'm so nervous. Oh, God. These two words seemed to have been pushed through bared teeth. The emperor sat up straight, his brows stark over the dark shadows of his eyes. Emperor and subject gazed at one another over the blazing coal brazier, over the rising heat and smoke. Their images reflected in each other's eyes were hazy and distorted. The emperor's voice was dark. Shihajuin, you've disappointed us deeply. We ask you, when we handed Gu Mang to you, what did we say? Morsi remained silent. We warned you that, in light of the great crimes Gu Mang has committed, he ought to have gone to the executioner's block long ago. We kept him alive solely because the Liao kingdom techniques written into his body were worthy of further study, that there would come a day when he would be taken for such study, and on that day, we hoped you would not forget who you are and take the wrong side on impulse. These had indeed been the emperor's words. Back then, Morsi had only felt suffocated. Hearing them for a second time now, he found them absurdly mocking and terrifying. Morsi studied the emperor's face, seeking the slightest hint of guilt, sadness, or hesitation. But there was none. The mask he wore was exquisite. Every line and angle of emotion seemed to have been measured 100 times before it was portrayed. There was not the merest waver in his eyes. Hardest to read was the heart of the king. When had this saying been wrong? Morsi closed his eyes. Coldness and rage, disappointment and sorrow filled the veins that flowed through his body, but the emperor's words stabbed into his eardrums like scorpion venom. Shihajuin, as we see it, you've gone blind. You've discounted all the warnings we gave you. You've forgotten you are the top general of Chonghua and forgotten who stabbed you in the heart. You've forgotten who rescued you and gave you a second chance at life. Forgotten who killed tens of thousands of our nation's people. You've entirely forgotten who the traitor is, haven't you? A piece of prickly ash burst inside the brazier with a crackle, and a trail of bright sparks flew up, dancing in the air. Morsi opened his eyes. He held back his fury, so intense it threatened to overwhelm him. He endured the trembling of his hands, so enraged they were shaking, pushing down his fiery anger that surged like lava. He spoke, voice low. Is your Imperial Majesty done? Oh, shit. Oh, sorry. Mochi. Oh, Anne says emperors like him always manage to impress me somehow. Right? Oh, I've only seen one emperor that I like, and I'm not even done with the show, so I can't say I like him until it's over to make sure. I'm sorry, Moshi just shit is about to hit the fan. Right. Let me rein it in because that just sent me. The emperor stilled. Right. He stared dark-eyed into Morsi's face. He'd finally realized the state Morsi was in. Looking at him more closely, he found that even his spiritual flow was fluctuating wildly. Could it be? Could it be what, Emperor? The Emperor was filled with an extreme unease. Unconsciously tightening his grip on the Dietza bead bracelet, the last bit of color in his face faded. In this fraught movement between ruler and subject, It seemed as if everything had been laid bare. If so, then I, too, have a strange tale. I'm not sure if your Imperial Majesty dares to listen to it. I need a sip of water. Come on, hydration station. After a long while, the Emperor reclined deep into the couch. He had already guessed what Moshi was about to say. There was only one thing that could change his mind so suddenly and resolutely. That last layer of paper between them shuddered, waiting to be punctured. Moshi's eyes never left the Emperor's, pausing between each word as he tore through that paper screen. Many years ago, there was someone I knew. That man performed outstanding military achievements for the nation, fighting for years on end and only ever recording a single loss. Later, for the price of 70,000 gravestones, for the equal world his emperor promised him, he went deep into the enemy's ranks, suffering a mission in unceasing torment for a full 5 years. In those 5 years, not a single day passed when he didn't rue the blood he spilled, when he didn't hope for his emperor to show him that old promise fulfilled. The emperor's face paled with every word he spoke. Each one was like a sharp knife piercing that flawless mask, shredding his many falsehoods into tattered scraps. Each and every word Moshi set down before the emperor was soaked in glaring scarlet. In the end, this man returned to his nation, but lost his memories. Other than the emperor he'd once entrusted with his life, no one knew he wasn't guilty. He was universally reviled, debased, and imprisoned. The nation hated him, blamed him, humiliated him, wished for his death. And his emperor, who had once promised him that he would one day be exonerated, that he would be bestowed that blue gold ribbon of heroes, said he was only left alive as fodder for black magic experiments. Explosive fury ignited Morsi's eyes. No matter how he tried to suppress it, by now his voice was quaking. His black eyes seemed to spark with flames. Your Imperial Majesty, I'm not sure if you're familiar with this story. The Emperor's face was whiter than paper. In this dangerous silence, he tried to put the bracelet back onto his wrist. His hand was trembling slightly, and he didn't succeed on the first try. Only on the second attempt did he wrap the beads properly. Moshi, the Emperor looked up. What nerve you have! You dare trespass on the Imperial Censorate to steal the history recording jade scrolls. So, Moshi closed his eyes, his face shaking from rage. You were the one who destroyed them. His eyes snapped open. The Emperor had never seen such anguish and frigid cold in those pupils. It chilled him to the bone. I would be scared if I was the Emperor. Sway Dash says, oh no, not the consequences of Emperor's actions catching up to him. Oh no, not you reap what you sow. The Emperor was of an age with Moshi. They had essentially grown up together. Oh. He knew too well the character of this youthful commander of the empire. His father had once said, the Moor bloodline is loyal, strong, brave, stubborn, and tenacious. They are ruled by absolute principle. They will never covet your throne, nor will they do anything to oppose you without real reason. But if a day comes when he believes something you've done violates the tenets he believes in, he will stand against you, with no fear of death nor thought for reputation. He will become the sharpest needle in your eye and the most painful thorn in your flesh. He had never forgotten his father's words for a single moment. In all matters regarding Moshi, he had ever been cautious and prudent, but Moshi had still ended up on the opposing side. Moshi spoke, voice resounding through the hall. Your Imperial Majesty, he's done so much for you, but you insist on hiding the truth? For a moment, Jutre Hall was terrifyingly quiet. The twisting Jiao dragons carved onto the roof beams seemed to come alive, staring with sharp claws outstretched at the confrontation below. After a lengthy silence, the Emperor spoke. He could no longer evade nor conceal the truth. He looked up and asked softly, and if I do? Okay. Well, that was the end of that chapter. But really quickly, I am going to bookmark this page. So let me just go ahead and do it where the previous emperor had given the current emperor the warning, which to me, he should have heeded that warning. Like, you messed with somebody in his circle, which was the mistake already. You should have chosen someone else. Okay? If you would have chosen anybody else, maybe things would have been fine. Actually, things probably would have been fine. So, for you to not heed the words of your father, that's on you, is all I have to say on anything concerning this chapter. Mm, yeah. And says he could use the oath against Morsi. Hope he's not, though. Yeah. And then Sway Dash says, why would you try to hide things or piss off your strongest subject? That is just playing with fire. I agree. But who are we? Maybe we don't know what we're talking about. Maybe we need to keep reading, and there's some good reason for hiding the truth after the truth has already been exposed, after the person has already made it known that they know the truth. Let's continue to chapter 128. No other choice. I hope it's not the emperor saying he had no other choice. Or what if it's Moshi saying he has no other choice than to die, die, die? Okay, anyway, I'm sorry, you guys. The warm room was suddenly filled with a piercing cold. The emperor leaned back deep into the couch, looking down at Moshi. He wrapped the fox fur more tightly around himself and slowly said, the past is the past. There is no reason whatsoever for us to keep those records. Shihajun, let me ask you. These jade scrolls you risked your life to repair. Can they strengthen our nation or bring security and happiness to the people? Can they bring down the Liao kingdom or guarantee peace in the 9 provinces? The emperor paused. They cannot. Yes, I don't believe that's true. He continued. Preserving those scrolls would only cause unnecessary confusion and discontent. It would only cause See, it would only cause what has come to pass today, an emperor and his subject at odds. Do you recall the stone plaque erected at the door of the imperial censorate? It says, the past is dead. These 4 words are quite correct. Some events, some secrets, ought to be buried by the passage of time. If they are unearthed, they stand to harm the present in 100 different ways, without conferring the slightest benefit. After a few beats of silence, the emperor said blandly, we didn't expect you to find it so hard to accept. I'm sorry, let me just go back to that previous page. What did he say? They are loyal, strong, brave, stubborn, tenacious. Okay. After a few beats of silence, the emperor said blandly, we didn't expect you to find it so hard to accept. Moshi's eyes were shot through with scarlet. Lava seemed to roil in his chest. Blood rushed into his head. His fingers curled into fists, and his voice was dreadfully hoarse. It's not that I can't accept it, but rather, Your Imperial Majesty, it's that you have accepted it far too easily. He pressed on. 8 years ago, on that stormy night upon the Golden Terrace, you promised Gumang everything he wanted. You said every pretty phrase at your disposal. You said you never thought of him and his men as insignificant beasts. You said you would shape for them a world where everyone is treated equally, that there would come a day when you would personally bestow a martyr's ribbon upon him. All these guarantees you gave to him, all the promises you made, were they no more than schemes and lies? Shihajun, the emperor's gaze was like solid ice. The bridge of his nose wrinkled slightly, his stare growing predatory. You forget yourself. What have I forgotten? Moshi retorted. I merely want right to be right and wrong to be wrong. I merely want him to receive the respect he deserves instead of more false accusations. It's been 8 years. The secret festered in his heart for 8 years. Yet even during the worst of his suffering, he never betrayed you or revealed the slightest hint of the truth. Now he's been hollowed out. He can't serve you anymore. Is it really so hard for you to return him the innocence he deserves? You led him down a dead-end road, then washed your hands of him. Your Imperial Majesty, was he your chess piece before? So who is your pawn now? Me? The Emperor rose to his feet, upending the table with an explosive crash. Fruit and cakes rolled over the floor. The bean cakes were crushed, the grapes destroyed, their juices pooling on the ground. Poor grapes. I love grapes. Redness rushed into his face. Morsi, we're warning you. Here you go, Anne. Do not forget the oath you have sworn. There we have it. Okay. I just want to read comments really quickly. Soy Dash says, how can the past be dead when you promise something to come to pass in the future? Right? How can the past be dead when this person yet lives? Things are still happening. And then Anne says, well, he's the emperor and can do whatever he wants, I guess. She says, shoot. Why, God? Why? Shoot. Whew. Well, let's keep reading, shall we? He had blurted this out in shock and in desperation. In desperation? Does that mean maybe it won't? Okay, let's see. Regret came instantaneously. Oh, light flashed in Morsi's eyes. He put a hand to his brow and tilted his face to the sky, shoulders shaking with self-mocking laughter as he murmured, the vow of calamity. 10 years of my life I give to you this oath of blood. From now on, slave cultivators will never take up arms and rebel, nor will I take up arms and rebel. I pledge my loyalty to your imperial majesty and to Chonghua with my life. The memory of helplessly swearing the blood oath and lowering himself to the ground in a long kowtow was vivid in his mind. Morsi swallowed thickly and closed his wet eyes. What a colossal joke, he murmured. He was still for a moment with an arm over his eyes, striving to harness his own emotions, but it was futile. At that moment, his teeth gnashing hatred was plainly engraved on his thin face. He lowered his arm, then those black eyes opened once more. They were bright with a knife-like chill. The emperor tensed and instinctively flung up a hand in defense, but Morsi's wrathful outburst, even with his core damaged, was more powerful than he'd imagined. With a crackle, the snake whip Shuaijan appeared in his hand and viciously struck the barrier the emperor had created. The whip's scarlet light tore through the air, transforming into a razor-sharp sword that came to a stop a hair's breadth from the emperor's throat. The emperor blanched. Xi Gu, make a move against us, and you will disperse of ashes on the wind and die without an intact corpse. He's scared. Morsi's eyes were blood red. He stepped forward, holding the sword level, teeth gritted and voice dark. You don't need to remind me. Your Imperial Majesty, back then, you already knew. You had all... Oh. Sorry, there's a picture. Hold on. I'll show you guys the picture. Holy shit. So now you see why I paused. He said, next time I keep my mouth shut. Yeah, it's all your fault. He mentioned that. Don't say anything else. Sway Dash says, I doubt Morsi will care about a calamity on him as long as he can make things right. That man ain't worried about no calamity, Emperor. Like, he already knows he took the vow. Don't you think he would remember he took the vow? No, he's not going to rebel. He's going to find a way to get you to submit to him or some, I don't know. We'll see. And says, so he can't really be threatened by it. Yeah. Now, let me get back to reading. You had already made up your mind not to touch Gu Mang's surviving soldiers, but you still had to get another reassurance from me. Xi Gu, you used the same chip twice. First to secure his undying devotion, and second to secure my eternal loyalty. 2 birds with 1 stone. I would expect nothing less of your Imperial Majesty. An excellent ploy. Really quick, 2 birds, 1 stone is Yi Shi Er Niao. Okay. The emperor turned his face aside. We couldn't explain it to you then. Recall that we'd been evading you the entire time, but you knelt before our hall for 3 days and 3 nights. He whipped around to face Morsi, the glare of the sword illuminating his face with a malevolent light. 3 days and 3 nights. What could we do? Send you away? Refuse to see you? Shihajun, take a moment to think about us. All the thousands of eyes on the court are fixed upon us. Think think what you would have done if we told you the truth. Could you have merely looked on as that dear Shishong of yours went to suffer for so many years in the Liao kingdom and endured so many years of disgrace? You couldn't. At this point, the emperor's eyes, too, were bloodshot from rage and obstinance. He stared at Morsi, and his voice shook. With everything you've done, when haven't you forced our hand? Do you think we wanted this? Do you think, after all of it, we could really feel no guilt and sleep in peace? Now you just saying the same things you said to Gu Mang. If your Imperial Majesty felt so guilty, how could you do something as cruel as what you did today? Morsi furiously shot back. What choice did we have? So I was right. It was the Emperor saying that. The Emperor stared at him through scarlet eyes. He pointed behind him at his own throne. Why don't you sit there and tell me what it's like? There is much we cannot control. If you haven't sat there, you can't see any of the threats that lurk around us. He panted. Do you think we don't want to clear his name? Do you think we don't want to see our god of war ride armored once more onto the battlefield? Do you think we don't want to take his hand and tell the entirety of Chonghua his faith never wavered? Their General Gu is still their General Gu. A loyal heart forever true? Do you really think we don't want that? As the Emperor spat out those last words, he began to choke up. I'll tell you the truth. Every day and every night, even in my dreams, I yearn for that day. I'm having a hard time right now. Okay. The Emperor turned, fighting an agitation unseemly for a nation's ruler as he turned his face away. Finally, he calmed himself enough to resume using the royal we. But we can't do it. The root system sustaining Chonghua's old nobles is as strong as it ever was. The situation with slave cultivators has improved, but not enough, and the Liao kingdom still threatens our nation's borders at every turn. In the matter of black magic curses, Chonghua is still in the dark. We can only react to them. How do you propose we clear General Gu's name? Do you want us to announce to the world that Gu Mang was actually a spy we sent into the Liao kingdom, or explain nothing and exempt him from punishment by fiat? Hold on 1 second. I feel like I'm saying that word wrong. Fiat. 1 second. Oh, I need to. Fiat. I said it right. Fiat. So, fiat is a noun and it is a formal authorization or proposition, a decree, just so you all know. Okay. The Emperor laughed bitterly. Shihajun, wake up. There is too much blood on Gu Mang's hands. The latter is impossible. And if you would just consider it calmly, you could guess the results of the former. Yes, the stain on his reputation would be washed clean. But what next? The Liao kingdom would know Gu Mang had relayed the most closely guarded secrets of their magic to Chonghua and fortify their defenses accordingly. The old nobles would learn of the arrangement we made with General Gu back then and grow uneasy and restless. Internal troubles and external threats would combine to render General Gu's 5 years of spying, 3 years of humiliation. All his suffering, everything he sacrificed, it would be wasted. The Emperor paused, his eyes flashing as he turned to Moxi. This is not what we wanted. Shihajun, you are the person he treasures most. You should understand his choice. Okay. I will at least give the Emperor that, okay, that right now it's kind of impossible to just be like, oh, sure, let's just exonerate him and do all of that stuff right now, because word will definitely get to the Liao Kingdom. And I'm sure, yes, the Liao Kingdom is lurking around and ready to fight, because Chonghua and the Liao Kingdom are both like licking their wounds until they fight again. Like there's no peace between them. So I get that. If they found out that Gu Mang was the traitor, then they're definitely going to change up tactics. And from an emperor's perspective, you can't just think about this one person. You do have to think about the entire country that you're over. And yeah, they would be destroyed. They would be mutilated. So I understand that. As much as I dislike it, Gumang made his choice, as the emperor said, and this is the rotten fruit of his labor. At least it feels rotten right now. So let's keep reading. The long sword in Morsi's hand quivered with the trembling of his heart. How could he not understand? Gumang had spoken to him of his dream countless times. In the beginning, he was so timid, as if terrified his companions would mock the naivety of his ideals. Later, he'd spoken resolutely, decisively. At that time, Gumang had already chosen to follow this principle to its end and would never turn back from his aim. How could Morsi not understand the choice he made? From the moment he saw Gumang kneel on the golden terrace, he knew what kind of path Gumang had laid out in his heart. But when he thought of that blood-soaked man in Sushu Terrace tonight, thought of the man who fell into his arms, tears streaming down his face as he begged not to have his memory stripped away, how could he accept it? Torn in 1,000 directions, Morsi felt like he was burning alive. He felt like his body had been cleaved in two. Half his heart ached for the suffering Gumang had endured and clamored for him to give up. What righteousness and loyalty to the nation and the world? How could there be equal treatment for all, with peace throughout the land? His Shushong was far too naive. The world would never give him anything. Yet he still offered up his chest full of passion, his pristine reputation, and his body of flesh and blood. Morsi, when your mind was collapsing, he begged you so pitifully. He's afraid of pain. How could you not save him? Sway Dash says he didn't have to announce it and just have kept him in Morsi's hands. Yeah, he didn't have to announce it to the world. Everybody could still think he was a traitor, but he didn't have to go through the suffering of that experimentation. You know, like I get it. Y'all could have just done your best to find someone from the Liao Kingdom and test their bodies. Their body. Like, why Gumang specifically? The other half of his heart murmured, no. Ever since he was young, Gumang had hungered for a world where all were equal, and that'll never happen. His Shushong had walked this path for so many years, covering his body with blood and filling his eyes with wounds, just for the realization of that day. If he were awake, with how stubborn he is, he would definitely want to persevere. Morsi, how could you betray him? The two halves of his heart battled, locked in mutual torment. His spiritual core was nearing collapse. Though the elder of Shunnong Terrace had done all in his power to stabilize it, it was still dangerously weak. Now, as his emotions surged, his jeopardized core throbbed with a pain so violent he coughed out a mouthful of blood. Upon seeing his condition, the emperor relaxed slightly. Shihajun. With a turn of his wrist, Morsi flipped the Shuaizhen longsword down to prop himself up. The blade's sharp point sank into the golden brick below. He panted, wiping blood from the corner of his mouth, and rasped through lips and teeth stained scarlet. Even if you can't clear his name right now, then let me ask you. He blinked laboriously, tendons protruding in his neck, and his hands tightly clenched, each word bitten out. Why do these black magic experiments? Ding, 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 ding. That sentence landed like a stone in the sea, sinking into silence. He's saying the same things that we're saying. Morsi looked up, staring at the emperor's pallid face through furious and grieving eyes. His blood-stained lips moved slowly, and the words he spat were equally raw. Even if you were bound by circumstance and couldn't ensure his safety, as the ruler of the nation, could you not at least spare him some suffering after he returned? Morsi's voice cracked like a shattered shun. The rims of his eyes were alarmingly red. Black magic experiments are excruciatingly painful. Your Imperial Majesty, What are you doing this for? Putting on a show? Performing blood for blood vengeance for these who don't know the truth? Or was it because you wanted to learn more secrets of black magic curses? Well, yes, no one else wants to. The emperor's face was ashen. He parted his lips to speak, but stopped himself. In the end, he bit his lower lip and turned his face away. Xi Gu, there are many things you don't understand. There are indeed many things I don't understand. I don't understand what you've been thinking all these years. I don't know which of the things you've said are true and which are false. It's precisely because I don't know anything that I was kept in the dark for a full 8 years. But, Your Imperial Majesty, do you think you know all the truth? Light flickered in the Emperor's eyes. What do you mean? He said slowly. Caught in the grip of his surging emotions, another burst of coppery bitterness filled Morsi's throat. He closed his eyes, tilting his head slightly without answering. At that moment, those two little golden beasts on the brazier of Jutre Hall awoke. They inhaled smoke into their bellies, then hiccuped, raising their voice to shout. His Imperial Majesty's fortune floods the heavens. His Imperial Majesty's might covers the world. Great timing. Morsi silently listened to these two magic-imbued beasts belching flattery and praise. He began to laugh, the sound filled with endless sorrow. The Emperor's expression strained tighter. What about Subject Gu do we not know? Morsi didn't answer him directly. Your Imperial Majesty, Mu Zhonglian gifted you this brazier and incense burner to demonstrate his allegiance and give you peace of mind. Countless people bend their knee and praise you for the sake of their own titles and status, for their lives, or the lives of their families. If you wanted to find someone in Chonghua whose heart is truly steady, immovable in its loyalty to Chonghua, there are actually very few. Very few. Gu Mang is one of them. Because of your many difficulties, you did not make good on your promise. But he is not the same. The things he promised you were sworn with a gentleman's word. He achieved all of them. As Morsi spoke, he smiled softly. That smile held a boundless aching sadness. Your Imperial Majesty, what you do not know is that Gu Mang recovered most of his memories while we were on Bat Island. Distant light flickered in the Emperor's eyes. After a moment of blankness, shock followed. He did? Morsi's eyes were almost cruel as he took in the Emperor's rattled expression. He cut into his ruler's heart with every word he spoke. Aside from those 5 years he spent in the Liao Kingdom, he more or less remembered everything. He remembered the promises you made him, the kind of person he is, Lu Jianxing's death, the defeat at Phoenix Cry Mountain, everything you said on the Golden Terrace. He remembered it all. The Emperor's cheeks were bloodless. He shook his head, murmuring as he took a step backward. His face was blank as if he hadn't realized the implications of those words, but he was trembling all over as if he understood completely. How could that be? He took another step back, looking at Morsi in disbelief, but his eyes were empty, as though whatever convictions had supported his cruelty had collapsed to pieces. A crack had appeared across the Emperor's usually indifferent face. Expression and increasingly vivid emotions began to pour from the split. The Emperor shook his head again and again, his voice rising until it sounded almost wild. How could he possibly have remembered? If he really remembered everything, then wouldn't it be? Morsi blinked back his tears. He knew the truth. He knew you had forsaken him. Yet he continued to keep your secret. 8 years have passed. He's seen his reputation destroyed and his body covered in wounds. He's received none of what you promised him. But he still kept this secret for you. He didn't come to question you, nor did he confess his grievances to any other. When Zhou He cut him open to carry out the black magic experiments you ordered, his mind was clear. Morsi steadied his shaking voice, but his vision blurred. Your Imperial Majesty, do you understand now? When he went with Zhou He, he knew he was innocent. The emperor collapsed back down into his throne. His lips were nearly blue, as if his illness might flare up again at any moment. He knew. He already knew. Then at that time, the emperor stumbled over his words. He lifted slender fingers to bury his face into his hands, murmuring in hoarse fragments, Subject Gu, Subject Gu. Despite knowing he had been discarded, he had walked silently into the Asur room. What had he felt? The emperor closed his eyes in grief, his voice catching in his throat and turning into a sorrowful gulp. The shock of this truth was too much for him. For a long time, the emperor could not recover. He mumbled to himself, the rims of his eyes overflowing and the palms filling with tears. His head was down, his shoulders crumpled pathetically, his neck bent as if an invisible claw had broken it. In all the years Morsi had known him, he had never seen the emperor like this. The man sat sunken into the soft middle of the throne as the minutes ticked past. He stared vacantly at that glowing brazier, watching the firewood crackle within. His eyes were empty when he spoke, defeated. Morsi. He was met with silence. Do you think we have a heart of stone? That after making use of Subject Gu, we carelessly abandoned him without any feeling, or the slightest intention of keeping our promises? The emperor looked up, the rims of his eyes and the tip of his nose still red. He closed his eyes. Amid the silence, he seemed to make some decision. He rose to his feet. There is nothing we can say that you will believe. And so it is, to be honest. Of those history recording jade scrolls, one yet remains. We have always kept it at our side. Morsi tensed. When the emperor next spoke, it was with an air of heavy weariness. Since it's come to this, we have nothing left to hide. We ask you to come with us. I'm going to read some comments. Swaydash says, oh, is the emperor cursed by black magic and he is trying to cure himself? Oh, look at you coming up with that. Interesting. Maybe he is. Who knows? Hold on. Who knows? Just thoughts on this chapter really quickly. I think when we're doing live readings, it's just better if we go ahead and talk a little bit after the end of each chapter rather than waiting to the end. I'm having a hard time because, like, on one hand, I want to believe the emperor, but on the other hand, it's difficult to believe the emperor. But I do understand that. What do I understand? I don't know. Well, one thing I can say is that I do think that maybe the emperor does feel slightly bad after finding out that Gu Mang remembers everything and still went through with everything and had no grievances. Because I'm wondering if maybe to make himself feel less guilty, the emperor held on to the fact that Gu Mang lost his memories. Because if he was experimenting on just Wolfgaga, if he was experimenting on an empty shell, then that would make him feel less trepidation in his heart for what he was doing. That is a possibility. But knowing now that, oh no, Gu Mang remembered. He remembered. And still, all of this stuff happened because according to Zhou He, that imperial decree was given the moment Gu Mang returned, I think. But still, Gu Mang was an empty shell. So it's possibly that the emperor felt less guilt because it was like, well, he's an empty shell, right? So it's okay. But now it's like, oh shit, he wasn't an empty shell. He remembered everything. Yes, Your Imperial Majesty. He remembered everything. And says the emperor might also be conflicted about all the events coming to light and his actions after those events took place. Yeah. He's probably definitely feeling conflicted, guilty, a guilty conscience, which hopefully that's the case. That's a good thing. You should feel some guilt. It'd be one thing if he was just like, so who cares? I have a complicated feelings about the emperor, but not all hope is lost, I think, in my mind. Let's move to the second to last chapter. We have about 22 pages left. Chapter 29. The Truth of Warrior Soul Mountain. But also, he's saying really quickly that there's one more Jade Scroll left. And I'm concerned because Morsi does not need to go and see another Jade Scroll. Like, can you just tell him? Or is it really one of Gu Mang's memories? And so, like, do you know? Can you just tell him? Does he have to go in there and mess up his spiritual core some more? The dude is already on death's door, basically, so kind of, sort of. Anne says that would be typical emperor, but I hope he's not the typical emperor. Yeah, I'm really hoping he's not, because like I feel like by this point, any other emperor would have already just been like, ha ha, it's the way it is. Who cares? But he's breaking down in front of Moisi. Not to say he couldn't fake that, but when have we ever seen an emperor fake something like that? So I don't know. Anyway, the point is, I'm hoping he's not a typical emperor. Now, let's return to the reading. Chapter 129, The Truth of Warrior Soul Mountain. Is this when Gu Mang went? The emperor led Morsi to the back courtyard terrace of Juche Hall. A pool of dream-gathering water lay there, which could gather the past into the present and bring it in front of the viewer's eyes. Well, that sounds a lot safer. The emperor stood motionless beside the pool, watching the reflections of himself and Morsi within. Then he slowly took that string of Baldi Ditsa beads off his wrist and passed it through his hands. The Baldi beads had been polished by time. He moved his fingers over each one and stopped at the seventh. Morsi, we might have chosen to destroy the Jade Scroll in the Imperial Censorate, but... He closed his eyes, wringing his hands. But we never thought of lying to subject Gu. We've always kept the Ditsa bead that can clear his name with us. In the event we achieved what we promised during our lifetime, we of course intended to publicly announce his innocence. But if we were defeated by fate, we would have ensured this Ditsa bead containing the truth remained on this earth. When the time came, there would be descendants who would reveal that oath on the golden terrace to the realm. The night wind rose, rustling through the leaves of the parasol trees at the pool's edge. In this way, under the 9 springs, we would at least be worthy of seeing our loyal subject again. As he spoke, he tapped that Ditsa bead with his fingertip. The bead shone with dazzling light as a wisp of silver-white memory floated from it and fell into the dream-transfiguring pool. The water rippled, shattering the frosty moonlit reflection as a cold mist rose from its surface. The mist coalesced into a vision. Faint sounds emanated from the depths of the fog. Gradually, they became crystal clear. A brothel echoing with the voices of women unfolded before their eyes. The fragrance of blackberry rose on the wind, cuckoo song and red flowers filling the trees. An empty happiness, only wishing the one I long for thinks the same. The sound of, I'm sorry, there's a footnote. I'm going to read that. Footnote number 13, this line is from Spring Evening by the Yuan Dynasty poet Li Zhiyuan. The sound of the paired stanza water fairy music came hazily from the stage in the brothel, the songstress's tremulous voice drifting through the pleasure house like a floating skein of silk. Another footnote. Footnote 14. The paired stanza water fairy. This is a type of poem with a rigid rhythm scheme originating in the Tang Dynasty. A rigid rhyming scheme. So now I'm wondering what that sounds like exactly. The fragrance of blackberry rose on the wind, cuckoo song and red flowers filling the trees. An empty happiness, only wishing the one I long for thinks the same. The sound of the paired stanza water fairy music came hazily from the stage in the brothel, the songstress's tremulous voice drifting through the pleasure house like a floating skein of silk. The hazy shadow of flowers at dusk. The daylily flourishes without mercy. The pomegranate blossoms deepen yearning. Heavy is the ache of farewell. The fog rising from the pool grew denser, enclosing the entirety of the terrace at the back of Jutre Hall in a sensual illusion. Apricot Mansion. Morsi and the Emperor stood amid that thick fog. Slowly, the scene came into focus. Morsi saw once more that night from 8 years ago he had seen in the time mirror, the eve of Gu Mang's defection. Oh, in the side room of the brothel, Gu Mang was speaking with that mysterious black garbed man. He hadn't known who the black garbed man was back then. In hindsight, it seemed it was none other than the Emperor himself. Okay, that's what I was thinking. Okay. Well, let's keep reading. The Emperor walked. She said, huh? Okay, yeah. The Emperor walked to Morsi's side, eyes on that black garbed man who had materialized from the mist. This was the last meeting we had with Subject Gu before his defection. At the time, he knew he was soon to leave. He was distraught, so we agreed to come find him that day at midnight to take him to see something on Warrior Soul Mountain. The conversation they watched was identical to the one in the time mirror. In the illusory realm, the black robed emperor pushed a bundle toward Gumang and set it on the table. I brought this for you. You should change into it. I can't remember the way I disguised the black garbed man's voice. So I think it was raspy and ugly. I'm going to change that. Gumang's actions were exactly the same. He lifted a hand, turning down a corner of the cloth only to quickly wrap it back up. What do you mean by this? If you're going there, you'd best prepare, hadn't you? The Emperor said. If I tell you what's there, I doubt you'll believe it. Tonight, I'll take you there in person so you can see the truth with your own eyes. The scene around them darkened. When it lit up once more, the thick fog around them had become the foot of Warrior Soul Mountain. Both Gumang and the Emperor wore black hooded capes, thoroughly covered from head to toe. When Gumang reached the start of the curved footpath, he looked at the little cobblestone road snaking upward and lowered his hood, gazing at that lofty mountain path. Are you not going? Just thinking about how I'll be leaving soon, and my hands will be stained with the blood of Chonghua's soldiers. The Emperor cut him off. Chonghua's current state is as you've seen. You experienced it yourself after Phoenix Cry Mountain. I'm having trouble turning the page. Okay. When you and your army fell from grace, all you found were those who would kick you when you were down, none who would offer help in your hour of need. Seeing Gumang about to protest, he continued. You don't need to tell me that if Xi Gu were here, he would side with you. His support is useless. You're a clever person. You understand that Chonghua has always been ruled by the nobles. You cannot change anything with your power alone. Gumang said nothing. It's come to this, the Emperor said. The pieces are already in place for your treason. This move cannot be taken back. He lifted a hand in the cold mist, taking hold of Gumang's icy fingers. Gumang turned to look at him in surprise, twitching slightly as if he wanted to break free. But in the end, he did not. Morsi watched it all unfold in front of him. The first time he'd seen this piece of the past in the time mirror, he thought this black-garbed man was a Liao Kingdom agent, and that Gumang's trembling upon having his hand caught was from hesitation and indecision. Knowing the truth, his emotions were incredibly complicated. The first coherent sentence that came to mind was, were they cold? The Emperor, standing at his side, was taken aback. What? His hands, Morsi whispered. Were they cold? This was something that had happened 8 years in the past. No one would remember such details for that long. But after a moment of blankness, the Emperor understood. He lowered his lashes. Yes. Morsi didn't reply. I'm sorry. We pushed him onto this path of despair. Morsi made no sound as the Emperor in the illusion repeated just what he'd said in the time mirror. General Gu, None who seek to blaze a new path have hands unsullied by blood. Before you have a single innocent life on your hands, you should walk up Warrior Soul Mountain one more time. You won't have the chance to do so in the future. Gu Mang closed his eyes. The night wind tousled the wisps of hair at his temples. It was a long time before he gently pulled his hand from between the Emperor's palms. His fingertips still trembled. No one could warm those hands of his. Let's go. In the time mirror, this was as far as Morsi had been. But this vision was different. This time, dense fog unfurled, and he finally held what Gumang and the Emperor had gone to Warrior Soul Mountain to see. The Emperor and Gumang arrived before the barrier that guarded the forbidden area of Warrior Soul Mountain. Raising a hand, the Emperor cut his own palm, smearing fresh blood onto the array. The blood was instantly absorbed by the magical barrier, and a voice seemed to rumble out from the depths of the earth. Courageous achievements immortalized in stone. The Emperor answered. Graves of commoner heroes carved with names. Courageous achievements immortalized in stone. Graves of commoner heroes carved with names. This simple paired verse was the dream Gumang had held dear all his life. As soon as he heard this reply, the rims of Gumang's eyes reddened. The Emperor, taking note, sighed and patted Gumang on the shoulder. There's no one else here, he said softly. You may take off your cloak. Gumang unfastened the ties and let the cloak fall. Beneath was a set of white military mourning robes, trimmed in black. Let's go. They passed through the barrier and entered the forbidden area of Warrior Soul Mountain. Morsi already had an inkling of what awaited them and thought himself ready. But when he laid eyes on the scene within, he felt his heart had been struck a heavy blow. The entire forbidden area of Warrior Soul Mountain, fully half of the slope, was covered in neat rows of gravestones. Of those plaques, some were already carved with names, traced over with fine golden lacquer, while some were still blank. Seeing the vast expanse of them grouped together, it was as if those common born hero souls had returned from the underworld, crowding around the peak in a noisy bustle. Gumang stood stunned for a long interval. Then, as though afraid of shattering this beautiful dream, he took a few careful steps forward. Slowly, his cautious movements became staggering stumbles, and he lurched forward, ever closer. By the time he saw the engraved words on the first tombstone, tears had overspilled the rims of his eyes. He reached out, caressing the gleaming gold inscription on the stone, tears flowing freely. You've come home. Choked sobs escaped his throat as he knelt. In grief, he huddled in front of the incomplete field of tombstones, kowtowing again and again to those 70,000 comrades he left behind at Phoenix Cry Mountain. You've come home. The Emperor stood at his side. After a long while, he put a hand on Gumang's shoulder. This forbidden area is the first promise we fulfilled for you. 70,000 tombstones, each with names carved by our own hand, each gravestone personally erected. General Gu, it is our belief that, should we see through the plan you've made with us, there will come a day when the forbidden area of Warrior Soul Mountain will no longer be off limits. Gumang made no sound. Attired in formal military mourning dress and with white hemp binding his hair, he wept, kowtowing again and again. He saw no living people. His vision was filled only with those deceased and long gone brothers. The Emperor didn't disturb him. He kept Gumang silent company as he watched from the side. Eventually, Gumang staggered to his feet. He pressed his palms together, praying a few more times before the graves with his hands to his forehead, mumbling in a low voice. Is there anything else you want us to do? The Emperor asked. Gumang closed his eyes. When he spoke, his eyes were damp. If it's not too bold, I Have 3 things I'd like to ask your Imperial Majesty to grant. Speak. Gumang ran his fingers over the golden text of one of the gravestones, tracing the characters from top to bottom. For the first, if I'm really unable to return, I ask your Imperial Majesty not to erect a tomb or gravestone for me on Warrior Soul Mountain. When I leave for the Liao Kingdom, I become a spy. I will inevitably stain my hands with the blood of my comrades, even if I had no choice, even if I had a secret reason. Those whose lives I take will still die by my hand. I have no right to be buried with him. The Emperor seemed uneasy. But I ask you to hear me out. For the second request, Shi Juin's character is pure and kind. He's a noble of great merit, yet he shares a deep friendship with me and has offended countless ancestral patriarchs on my behalf. Once I defect, he is bound to disbelieve it. He may even take extremely disobedient and unfilial actions. I ask your Imperial Majesty to keep the truth from him, no matter what. I ask your Imperial Majesty to understand his sorrow and refrain from punishing him. Hearing this, Morsi couldn't hold back anymore. Tears poured down his face. He involuntarily stepped forward, eyes fixed on Gumang in the illusion, with his proper military uniform and solemn expression. Gumang, he murmured. But the illusion of Gumang from 8 years ago couldn't hear him. He stood in the chilly mountain air, his sleeves fluttering. He was not going to meet his death. Rather, he was going beyond death, and right now, he was methodically briefing the Emperor on his last wishes. The third thing, Gumang began, and then fell silent. He lowered his lashes and looked at his hands. After some time, he whispered, "The third thing, I want to play the soul-calling song for them, while my hands are still clean. But, Your Imperial Majesty, I only have a paltry little suona. May I borrow your holy weapon?" He raised his head, the crisp wind stirring the hair by his temples. Under the moonlight, he looked imploringly at the Emperor. When Chonghua's soul-calling song was performed for martyred heroes, a ceremonial official customarily played it on their holy weapon. Gumang couldn't hope for a ceremonial official to come console his brothers. He could only ask for recognition from this man in front of him. "With your devotion, what would we refuse you?" A jade-green bamboo xiao appeared in the Emperor's hands. He handed the flute to Gumang. Gumang thanked him, taking the xiao reverently with both hands. He raised his chin and gazed forward, as if to carve all of the 70,000 gravestones on Warrior Soul Mountain into his heart. Under the light of the bright moon and the shadows of the pines, he pressed the bamboo xiao to his lips and closed his eyes. Our sons went forth with swords held brave, their blood and bones in distant grave. Last year this self was yet intact. Last night this body spoke and laughed. Your loyalty I safely keep. Your valiant deeds I freely speak. For when those hero souls come home, throughout the land shall peace be known. The song came to an end. When Gumang lowered the xiao, his eyes brimmed with tears. He turned to restore the instrument to the Emperor, then knelt once more before the forest of graves. After a few moments of silence, he lowered his head, his voice small. "Your Imperial Majesty, I'm leaving soon. I don't know when I'll be back, if ever. Subject Gu, when I'm gone, I ask you to visit them often on my behalf. No need to burn too much gilt paper money. Just bring some good jugs of good wine, a few different dishes." By the end, his voice was a tearful whisper. When they were with me, the military rations were never enough. They would look at the rations for the other armies, and often they would joke with me and tell me. He pressed his forehead to the icy stone plaque, tears falling like beads off a broken string. Tell me they were hungry, that they wanted a proper meal. The Emperor said nothing. All these years, I heard all of it. Even if I never said anything, There were only those who said we wanted to seize power, that we wanted to revolt, called us insatiably greedy and wildly ambitious. Gumang slowly tilted his head back. But your Imperial Majesty, did you know? Their greatest, wildest ambition was actually just to eat a filling meal. The Emperor in the illusion wore a mask. No one knew what his expression was on hearing these words, but Morsi could see that, despite how many years had passed. When the present Emperor beside him heard Gumang say this once more, his expression was dull with pain. Come visit them on my behalf, would you? Bring them some more army rations. Subject Gu, rest assured, we will do as you ask. Could there be wine, too? We'll bring the finest wine and Chonghua for your men. Xiao Daozi is good enough. They're used to being poor. They wouldn't have the heart to drink expensive wine. Xiao Daozi, then. Gumang no longer had any requests. He knelt on the mountain, tilting his head to gaze at the plaques his brothers had become. He didn't move for a long time. The Emperor in the illusion sighed softly and raised a hand. Yet instead of dispersing the jade bamboo xiao, he pressed it to his own lips and played the soul-calling song again. The notes of the flute echoed under the pale moonlight, carried on the crisp breeze. To the sound of this mournful tune, the surrounds of Warrior Soul Mountain disappeared. The illusory fog and the scene it showed dispersed, but the moving song of the Xiao seemed to pass through illusion into reality and resonate from the foothills of Warrior Soul Mountain 8 years ago. The mist scattered, yet the notes lingered in echoes. A long moment passed back on Juche Terrace. Eventually, the Emperor replaced the deed's bead and gazed up at the pristine moon peeking from the clouds. Fireball, he murmured. These 8 years, we've worn this bracelet at all times, guarding this secret. Whenever we could bear it no longer, we transfigured this section of memory and watched it over again. Every time, we would remember once more that we did not walk this path alone, that we carried the hopes of more than just ourselves. It's been 8 years. Every day and every night, we never forget. We did not dare to forget. The Emperor caressed the deeds of beads on his wrist, voice a murmur. We don't have a heart of stone. It's only that. Sitting on high is like being held in a cage. By the end, his voice was tearful. In all honesty, has there ever been a moment we did not feel shame for our treatment of Subject Gu? And of you? Neither spoke. The birds and the cicadas in the ancient trees by the pavilion sang in the night. On the terrace of Jutre Hall, Moxi and the Emperor gazed at each other in silence, both grieving, eyes wet. Okay. I know I missed a lot of comments, but it felt wrong to interrupt the moment. So um let's see where we are with the comments. Anne says, so Bony Guy was the emperor. So that curse theory mentioned earlier could really be valid. This kind of scares, honestly. Then Anne says, okay, not the typical emperor. Some of his actions are not really justified, but he wanted to keep his promises to Gumang one way or another. And also says, it's plenty sentimental, really. Yeah. I honestly wasn't expecting that. I don't know what I expected the memory to be, but it wasn't that. So yeah, I think I did a great job at holding myself together. I did not break down and cry, which I feel like this volume just really wanted me to do. Okay. So, I don't know. Is there even anything to say? The emperor had already honored that wish before Gumang even left. And I don't know. That makes me garner just a bit more respect for him because that's not something that's possibly something Gumang would never be able to see after leaving. So for him to go ahead and have that done before Gumang leaves. Okay, I think I'm okay with this emperor for the most part. Yeah, like I get it. Being an emperor is hard. You're in power, but you're not in power. Like in any moment, you can be overthrown. You can be murdered, and then whatever it is that you're hoping to accomplish won't actually be accomplished. So, it's I get it. So now we have the last chapter left, which is like eight and a half, 9 pages. Let's do it. Okay. I'm gonna get a little bit more from the hydration station. Uh, I almost don't even want to read anymore. Like I just feel like I need a moment to. Okay. I'm sorry, y'all. Like I feel like I'm taking up a lot of time, but holy crap. Oh my god. Okay. Y'all, please excuse me a moment. Okay. Um, that's lovely. Chapter 130. Going home. I'm sorry, I'm also like crying because y'all know. Oh my god. Just really quick, it kind of reminds me of last month when I went to go visit my grandpa because I felt like if I didn't go visit him then that I was never going to be able to see them again. I mean, see him again. And I got to share my last words that I wanted with him. And it just kind of reminded me of that, the emperor giving him this opportunity that he might not get again in the future. So it's just kind of oh my god. Okay. Um 1 second. Okay, I'm gonna get it together. Okay, I'm all right now. Um, Freya says, "Oh, yeah. Thanks, you guys, for understanding." Chapter 130. Going home. Moshi returned to his manor, where he stayed in seclusion for 3 days. The capital buzzed with curiosity about what had transpired. What had taken place when Moshi went to the palace such that the emperor did not punish his great offense? After everything, he was merely placed under house arrest for a handful of days, and that was the end of it. No one could know the truth. In those 3 days, Jiang Fuli never once left Shihe Manor. Gumang's injuries were too severe. He sent everyone away to treat him. No one was allowed near the patient's room. On the third day, sunlight streamed through the window lattice. Time passed, and ink dark shadows flowed across the floor. Morsi sat at his sandalwood desk, looking at the stack of letters in front of him. He had already flipped through and reread these letters countless times in the past few days. They were the intelligence reports Gu Mang had sent the emperor from the Liao kingdom during the years he had been gone from Chonghua. The emperor had kept them in the Qiankun pouch he carried on his person at all times. 5 years' worth of reports, a thick stack. The earliest letters were smudged and faded, and even the latest had begun to yellow at the edges. The only thing that hadn't changed was the handwriting. Moshi couldn't be more familiar with those characters. The penmanship was slightly slanted and messy, the ends of certain strokes distinctively curled. Your Imperial Majesty, I've entered the Liao Kingdom. The Guosher of Liao was very wary and caused some slight difficulty. Everything has been settled. No need to worry. Wishing Your Imperial Majesty well. And another. Your Imperial Majesty, Liao plans to attack Lan City at the northern frontier after the fall harvest. There are many civilians in Lan City. I ask Your Imperial Majesty to have sympathy for the people and prepare in advance. Another. Your Imperial Majesty, I am stationed with the Liao Kingdom army at Mount Tiandang. As a general of Liao, I cannot avoid killing on the battlefield. In 7 days, in the attack on Lan City, I will have no choice but to face my comrades, the soldiers of Chonghua. For this, I beg forgiveness on my knees. There was even the missive Gu Mang sent to the emperor after the battle on Dongting Lake. The handwriting on that note was messier than on any previous letter. The brushstrokes seemed to shake, as if Gu Mang was so distraught while writing he couldn't calm down to pen each stroke properly. The anxiety he felt was palpable in the form of the words themselves. I had no choice but to stab him in the heart. General Moore is far too naive and stubborn. I sincerely hope your Imperial Majesty will take attentive care of him. I have one more request. General Moore and I shared a deep brotherhood, and I'm afraid I can never again face General Moore in battle. Every time Morsi read to this point, he couldn't help but imagine how Gu Mang must have felt writing this letter, and every time it hurt too much. Once he thought it, he couldn't console himself. Other than updates on the Liao Kingdom's military and reports of their black magic techniques, what Morsi saw most as he flipped through the letters were Gu Mang's accounts after each battle, of how many people he killed and how many cities he destroyed. These were not so much apologies to the emperor as Gu Mang's ledger of the lives he owed. By the 5th year, Gu Mang had stopped counting, probably because he, too, had realized, however he calculated or counted, those people were dead by his own hand. There was nothing to salvage. Instead, at the end of every letter, where one would usually sign their name, he would write a line in very small print. The guilty subject Gu Mang kowtows once and once again. Morsi stroked the words curled up in the corner. The guilty subject Gu Mang. His tears fell just like that, dripping onto those shameful and guilt-ridden words. He flipped to the last letter. In this final missive, Gu Mang wrote a few simple lines of text explaining the reason the emperor must use him for black magic experiments. Oh. Okay. Well, there's that. Okay. Fuck. When I first entered the Liao Kingdom 5 years ago, Liao tempered with my body, injected wolf blood into my veins, and carved black magic spells into my bones. Throughout these 5 years, my mind has gradually become chaotic, more and more difficult for me to control. I can guess what the Liao Kingdom will do next. Very soon, they will break my mind and destroy my memories, then send me back as a peace offering to Chonghua. My life is insignificant and is already soaked in filthy blood. Your Imperial Majesty need not trouble yourself to treat me. If your Imperial Majesty truly pities the suffering I endured, I ask you to have me sent to the prison to be dissected and experimented on, so that methods to counter the Liao Kingdom's black magic path can be found more quickly. With this, my remaining wishes shall be fulfilled. Gu Mang. So the Emperor hasn't done anything wrong then? I'm tweaking. Anne says he was expecting this. That's just got no words really. Freya. Oh wow. I feel like I'm going insane right now. Okay. Okay. This is not the time, Kamaria. Okay. I'm sorry, y'all. I'm feeling a little crazy. It's just I don't know. I feel like I'm handling this story and also still dealing with all of my emotions from this past weekend. So I'm just a little delirious, or that maybe that's not the right word. I'm just just feeling a little chaotic right now. Okay. Okay. Let me get it together, y'all. Hi, honey. Um, just, reading and crying, crying and reading. Um, okay. Back to the reading. At the end of the letter, there was once again that line of small and shameful characters. The guilty subject Gu Mang kowtows once and once again. The emperor's last words from Jutre Hall still echoed in his ears. Fireball, do you know how we felt upon seeing this letter? In the first missive he sent 5 years ago, he told us the Liao kingdom had some slight difficulty with him, but everything had been dealt with, and there was no need to worry. It wasn't until 5 years later, when he realized that the Liao kingdom would likely dispose of him next, that he revealed the truth. The slight difficulty he spoke of referred to the tempering of his body and the carving of his bones with the black magic runes. Do you understand now? The Liao kingdom sent him back because the demonic curse and monstrous blood in Gu Mang's body could no longer be controlled. Even they didn't know what he would become with his mind fully consumed by black magic. Nor did they dare to carelessly kill this mutated demonic body. So they sent him back to Chonghua. The emperor paused then. He repeated himself. Fireball, we had no choice. The black magic trials are cruel, yet this was the only method we could think of to save him. Otherwise, when the day comes that the demonic energy in Gu Mang's body explodes, both Chonghua and Gu Mang will be destroyed. Wow. So the Liao kingdom doesn't know what will happen to Gu Mang, and they don't dare kill him. So they sent him back to Chonghua as a peace offering. But from him saying that Gu Mang and Chonghua would be destroyed, clearly it wasn't a peace offering, but rather a weapon. Wow. Okay, let's keep going. A sharp knock sounded from the half-closed door. Moshi swiftly came to his senses, surfacing from those wretched memories. Yes, Gu Mang is so self-sacrificing, Jasmine. I cannot. I absolutely cannot. All right, let's do it again. Moshi swiftly came to his senses, surfacing from those wretched memories. He wiped away the tear tracks that had not yet dried and tidied up the letters. Enter. Li Wei took a few steps inside. In the past few days, he was the only person who could enter this room without being kicked out. My lord, good news! He's been saved! He exclaimed. Moshi started, jolting to his feet as if he might run out the door. He's still sleeping, Li Wei hastily added. Medicine Master Jiang instructed that he absolutely mustn't be woken up. The medicine master is waiting for you in the back courtyard. He says there is something he must speak to you about. Jiang Fuli was leaning against a pillar beside the lotus pond in the back courtyard of Shihe Manor. He gazed at the pool full of flourishing, fragrant lotus blossoms, his eyes glimmering with an inscrutable light. Whatever he was pondering seemed to have left him perplexed. His brows were drawn together slightly, his thin lips tightly pursed in thought. Moisi strode down the winding corridor and arrived at his side. Medicine Master Jiang. Perhaps he was depleted from 3 days of healing, or perhaps it was for some other reason that Jiang Fuli showed a rare trace of unresponsiveness. He continued to stare blankly at the fish swimming in the pool. Medicine Master Jiang. Only upon Moisi's second greeting did Jiang Fuli react as if waking from a dream. Oh, it's you. You're here. Moisi was thinking of nothing but Gu Mang. He took no notice of Jiang Fuli's strange demeanor. How is my Shishong? There were some slight complications, but you don't need to worry, Jiang Fuli replied. Sit down. I'll tell you. Moisi was restless, but Jiang Fuli's attitude seemed to say, I won't talk unless you sit. He had no other choice. He took a seat across from Jiang Fuli. Really quickly, Anne says, out of context, can we can we go for a protect Gu Mang and Moshi squad? This is all too much for me. Yeah. And you know what? We originally had a protect Gumang squad, and we were like, Morsi's gonna do it. But no, we definitely need to protect Morsi too. Like, what? Okay. Let me first ask you. Before Joho began the black magic experiments, had Gumang already recovered a majority of his memories? He was very straightforward, and so Morsi made no attempt to deny it. I don't concern myself with the machinations of the court. I won't ask anything more. You can be at ease. I'm only curious. He lost 2 souls, so it should be impossible for his memories to recover to such an extent. What did you experience on that island? What was it that put him into this state? The time mirror, Morsi answered. Jiang Fuli was silent for a beat. No wonder. Now I understand. I'll explain it this way, Shihujuan. The time mirror can indeed return Gumang's mind and memories, but human souls cannot be replaced. With the time mirror, what the time mirror did was only a flashback and not a true recovery. A flashback. Correct, Jiang Fuli said. It's like a flash of dying lucidity. It doesn't last long. In another month or two, the memories returned by the time mirror will disappear. No fair. He paused before continuing. My apologies. Even I have no way of reversing this. In truth, Morsi had more or less expected this. When the Shamgao had called the time mirror, he had shouted something about flashing back Gumang's memories. Even back when Morsi had been alarmed by the Shamgao's choice of words, but when he heard this confirmation from Jiang Fuli, his heart still plummeted. He cast his gaze downward. I understand. Many thanks, he said in a low voice. I'm paid to help with such problems. There's no need for thanks. Gumang's other injuries won't cause him further trouble. All he needs now is sufficient rest and care. However, there's something I must remind you of. Jiang Fuli's expression became solemn. His mind absolutely cannot endure another major shock. Morsi's heart seized. He asked, urgent, he's still unwell? How could he not be? Jiang Fuli held up 3 fingers before Morsi. First, now me trying to hold the fingers up. He lacks 2 souls. Second, an ancient godly mirror forcibly returned some of his memories. Third, Zhou He cut into his brain. He curled a finger with every item he mentioned. I should have done it this way then. Let me put it like this. Shi Hejuan, this Gu Shushong of yours is extraordinarily strong. If it were anyone else, they would have gone mad from any one of those 3. By the time all 3 fingers were down, even someone as arrogant as Jiang Fuli couldn't help a sigh of admiration. He went through all that, yet he still didn't lose his sense of self. A breeze blew over the lotus pool, scudding across the shimmering water. Jiang Fuli turned to gaze at the ripples, speaking softly. In truth, as a healer, I'm very curious. I can't imagine what kind of mental willpower he must possess to make him so indestructible. Jasmine says, foreshadowing? My heart cannot bear it. Both men were still for a moment. Jiang Fuli's almond eyes watched the fish in the pond circle each other and disperse. Suddenly, he asked, Shihujuan, I have a question for you. Gu Mang was sent to the Liao Kingdom as a spy, wasn't he? Now, how do you know? Okay. Looking up, Moshi stared at him. Jiang Fuli had used up 3 days of sheer effort. He was deeply weary, leaning against the pillar for support. He turned his head and squinted at the rippling lotus pool. Don't worry. I didn't peek at his thoughts while healing him, he said in a leisurely tone. Considering his mental fortitude, he might not tell me the truth even if I fed him the drought of confession. It's just a personal hunch, no more than an offhand question. You don't have to confirm either way. Moshi's throat hurt terribly. After a spell, he said, Why would you think so? It's very simple, Jiang Fuli replied. A traitor who fell onto a path of vengeful murder merely because he couldn't bear disappointment would not have the kind of willpower he does. I have no evidence, nor do I wish to involve myself in the intrigues of the court, but as a healer, I am certain he isn't a cruel person. Sunlight filled Jiang Fuli's eyes, smoothing those features that were usually so obstinate and unimpressed by the world. In this light, he looked somewhat melancholy, even gentle. Take good care of him, Shihajun. Oh, I skipped a line. Morsi was struck by a faint sense of deja vu. Take good care of him, Shihajun. The state of his mind is perilous, like a cracking sheet of ice. If he should endure a fourth trauma to the mind. Zhang Fuli paused, tone grave. He will go mad. At that point, unless you find his two souls, even an immortal from the highest of the heavens couldn't save him. Jasmine says, also reading Medicine Master Jiang, watching fish swimming in the pool, but think of the time Gu Mang trying to catch a fish. My heart. Yeah. In the evening, a crescent moon hung overhead. The canopy of heaven was lustrous with stars, and the Milky Way looked like a soaring dragon, or like a bright sword, glimmering with light as it flowed across the deep blue of the sky. On this night, many in Chonghua found their minds heavy with the weight of their own difficulties. In the imperial palace, the emperor lay curled within the soft bed canopies of Juque Hall, wrapped in fox fur. His eyes were closed as he caressed the Boti Jitsa bead bracelet at his wrist. In Yue Manor, Mu Rongchuyi's feet took him to the door of Yue Chenqing's bedroom. After hesitating a long time, he finally lifted a hand and rapped on the wood. He waited without response, then gently pushed the door open. Within, a single lamp was lit. Both the bed and the desk were neat, and Yue Chengqing was nowhere to be found. A servant walking past told him Yue Chengqing had gone to the academy to study with Jiang Yexue. Mu Rongchuyi did not respond. After a long while, he closed his eyes. In Medicine Master Manor, Jiang Fuli had announced he must set out on a long journey and was urgently packing his bags. His wife stood by the door as if she wanted to say something, but in the end, she never spoke. In Wangshu Manor, Mu Zhonglian lay on the bamboo bed in his courtyard, taking long drags of ephemera. Clouds of smoke slowly drifted from his lips and were blown toward the blossoming foxglove trees. Biting his pipe, Mu Zhonglian stretched his hand in front of him and stared vacantly at his own hands, his gaze flickering. As for Shiha Manor, after the many twists and turns and bloody storms, the inhabitants of this manor finally returned to a temporary peace. Gu Mang lay on the spacious bed in the master bedroom, covered with a light blanket, slumbering still. Morsi had dismissed the servants, keeping a solitary vigil at his bedside. He sat patiently, unbothered by Gu Mang's long sleep, or the fact that Gu Mang had taken his bed. After all, he'd once sworn to give Gu Mang those things. I promised to give you a home. Morsi took hold of his hand, bringing it to his lips and kissing it gently. I'm sorry, Shishong. I've made you wait so long. The man on the bed lay obediently, his thick sweep of lashes fanning across his cheeks. He no longer had any need to pretend, endure, or exhaust himself. He looked so weary, so weak. As Morsi gazed at the man before him, he could scarcely recall how his Gumangaga used to look. Healthy, sturdy, resplendent with sunlight. Time had ravaged him terribly. Morsi lowered his head, burying his face in his hands and pressing his forehead to Gumang's slightly cool palm. Quietly, he choked out, Shishong, you're home now. Warm tears streamed down his cheeks, soaking Gumang's hand. As if awakened by that murmur and the passion it entailed, after a few moments, Gumang's fingertips twitched. He slowly opened his eyes. That's it. That's all of it. Well, at least I can say that I appreciate Meat Bun for giving us a peaceful ending to volume 4. After all of the heartache it has taken to get to this place. Do we have 3 volumes left? Yes, we do. But at least we got a moment to breathe. Just like a little bit of relief. Even though we know there's going to be more tragedy. It's really unfortunate to hear that yes, like within a month or so, Gumag is going to lose the memories that he was given, that it was really truly a flashback and they'll eventually fade. It sucks to hear that with the tempering that happened to his body, eventually he will lose control and explode, whatever that means. Because it definitely doesn't mean just like, and then dead. It's definitely going to mean something greater. Um, y'all, I don't have anything to say. I really don't. I think I have exhausted myself emotionally. Yeah. Let me just look really quickly. I like how it, I don't know. I'm not going to try to make up anything to say. That was volume 4, you guys. So, what I am going to do is show you the cover of volume 5 and we will read um the summary of volume 5. Freya says, "You never know. We might get 3 volumes of fluff after this." Sorry. That's so funny. I can't believe that. Not at all. That was a funny joke. Sorry. And then Anne says, "One thing I need to say. Mu Zhonglian and his freaking pipe." That man is a drug addict, y'all. Okay. This is the cover of volume 5. Mu Zhonglian is on the cover. We know it because we see this pipe and the smoke from his ephemera going phew, 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 phew. So I'm excited because we get to learn more about Mu Zhonglian, the hot bastard, the hot devil. I am like really excited. I'm not even gonna lie. Very, very excited. And the other thing I will say though is that this book is thin, is very thin, which that is the case for the rest of them actually. When I look, it doesn't even get to 300 pages. So we're going to fly through this one when I come back from my trip. It's 288 pages. Seven Seas definitely was like, let's let's get them to spend $60 more at least instead of maybe 40, instead of combining like the rest of the chapters into 2 thick books. They gave us 3 tiny books. So let's read the summary. And at the top it says, "A lifetime together." With who? Mu Zhonglian and Gumang? What does it mean? Okay. Now that Morsi has uncovered the truth after 8 long years, he and Gumang finally have a chance to clear away the lies of the past. Both know the moments they share are destined to be fleeting. Despite his efforts to remain lucid, Gumang's memories from the time mirror continue to slip away, and dark magic eats at his mind. Yet peace at home is short-lived as new threats gather at the frontier. When the Liao kingdom attacks once again, Gumang will join his former master, Mu Zhonglian, as well as Morsi to confront their nation's darkest enemy. Their mission: to neutralize an ancient danger inextricably tied to Chonghua's most secret history. Okay, so we're gonna get a little fluff, even if it's only like 50 pages. This this is this is exciting. Yeah. Okay. But then we see that his memory's gonna go and the black magic. Okay. So now I think I see why it says a lifetime together. Because clearly, maybe just like Muzhong Lian, Gu Mang, and Moxi are just inextricably tied together. But what I want to know is what is this um secret in Chonghua's history? Does it have anything to do with black magic? The Liao Kingdom? Who knows? Anyway, that is the summary of volume 5. So yeah, I'm gonna go look at that comment on Patreon, and then tomorrow during the live recap and everything, I will pick the 3 people from Patreon who would get 2 months free. The 3 people from YouTube, or it might not even be YouTubers, it might be people that are just signing up for free, who will win October free. And then we'll just see how I feel after that. Maybe there will be a bonus something. Who knows? But anyway, Freya says that was my second choice. I can't wait to see who your first choice was. But anyway, so we don't go too much longer, and my husband is home now and in the same room as me. So I hope you all enjoyed today's reading session. Is enjoy even the right word anymore? Like, I don't even know, because I cried like twice. Where's the enjoyment? Um, anyway, you guys are more than welcome to re-listen to this, because again, it'll be morning for me. We're turning around and doing the recap and discussion. So I've got to like hurry and get my thoughts for these last 3 chapters together to add into there to see how we're gonna go through this. Jasmine says we went through trauma together. We did. We trauma bonded over these books. I am so hurt. But I guess also I'm just having more time to process this past weekend while reading all of the death stuff, which is kind of like great, perfect timing. Yay. But yeah, we don't know whether to laugh or cry. 哭笑不得. Anyway, I hope you guys have a great rest of your day, or if your day has already passed, that you have a wonderful night. And hopefully, I will see you all tomorrow morning or night for you. So, yeah. Well, I